Picture this for a second. You wake up, you check your phone, and you see three totally seemingly unrelated headlines.
Right.
You see the gas station down your street is now charging over $4 a gallon. Then you see a massive, highly anticipated new AI model basically just ran out of computing breath and had to, shut its doors to new users.
Yeah.
And finally, you read about a proposed 10-day ceasefire thousands of miles away in the Persian Gulf. And at first glance, your morning commute, your tech feed, and international diplomacy, they live in completely different universes.
But they really don't.
Exactly. What if I told you they're all being pulled by the exact same invisible thread?
Because we are looking at a world where systems, literally every kind of system, from global supply chains and electrical grids all the way down to the physical endurance of human athletes, are just being pushed to their absolute breaking point limits. That is, without a doubt, the defining reality of the moment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our goal today is to connect the dots between those high-stakes global decisions and the ordinary, everyday expenses showing up in your life. And we're using the 4 p.m. news brief from the Daily Tech Reader for today, Monday, July 20, 2026, as our map for this deep dive.
It's a great snapshot of what's happening right now.
It really is. So, let's start with the most visible sign of strain for most of you out there, which is the gas pump. As of today, the national average for a gallon of gas has crossed that psychological threshold. It just hit $4.03.
Which is wild.
Yeah, that is a 30% spike just since this wider conflict began back in February.
And the mechanism driving that 30% jump is, it's entirely geopolitical.
Right.
Right now, we're on the 9th day of continued United States strikes against Iran. And the human toll, it's already severe. 17 American service members have reportedly been killed during this wider conflict, with more than 420 wounded.
Man, that's heavy.
It is. And because of how quickly this whole thing is escalating, mediators, particularly Pakistan, because they have these unique diplomatic ties to both Iran and the U.S., have proposed a 10-day ceasefire, just to try and revive the interim agreements that basically collapsed earlier this month.
But a 10-day pause sounds like a relief on paper, right? But Iran's president is openly stating the country is in a full-scale war.
Yeah, the rhetoric is not cooling down.
Not at all. And on top of that, the Houthis in Yemen have announced a naval blockade against Saudi Arabia, specifically threatening the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. So we are talking about placing 2.5 million barrels per day of Saudi oil exports at direct risk.
Exactly.
But let's look at the logistics here. It's like a row of dominoes stretching from the Persian Gulf straight into your driveway. Even if a 10-day ceasefire gets signed tomorrow, shipping companies can't just, teleport their massive tanker fleets back into dangerous waters. So is a 10-day ceasefire really enough to normalize shipping for these companies, or is this just a diplomatic band-aid on a much larger wound?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, a 10-day pause provides some diplomatic breathing room, sure, but it doesn't change the underlying insurance premiums or, the actual physical risk to cargo.
Because they have to plan so far ahead.
Exactly. Shipping companies have to plan routes weeks in advance, which brings us to a really specific microtrend we've been tracking called redundant disruption.
Redundant disruption. Okay, break that down.
So, to understand this, look at how Saudi Arabia initially adapted. When the primary route, the Strait of Hormuz, became too dangerous, they built in a redundancy. They diverted their crude oil exports toward the west, using the Red Sea road instead.
Right, they took the detour.
Yeah, but in modern conflict, the detour simply becomes the new target.
Wow.
As that alternate Red Sea route became the critical artery for Saudi oil, the Houthis just expanded their threat beyond the Persian Gulf to target that exact bottleneck at Bab el-Mandeb. So the logic of redundant disruption dictates that when one trade route becomes unsafe, the backup route immediately gets painted with a bullseye.
Which means these massive tankers have to take even longer detours around the Horn of Africa. They're burning more fuel, delaying deliveries, and basically keeping the global supply incredibly tight.
Yeah.
And the domestic fallout from this converges directly on your wallet. We are seeing reports today that student loan defaults are rising right now.
That's a huge point.
It is. And this follows the recent elimination of the Savvy repayment program. For some quick context, SaveEE was this federal income-driven plan that shielded borrowers by capping monthly payments based on their discretionary income.
Right.
With that program eliminated, millions of people just saw their monthly debt obligations spike at the exact same moment their commuting costs jumped 30%.
It's a perfect storm. Fuel prices have really become the clearest, most immediate transmission point between international military policy and domestic household finances.
Yeah.
Decisions made by military commands in the Middle East and domestic policy decisions made in Washington, they are literally colliding right now in the monthly budgets of ordinary families.
Yeah.
The margin for error in a household budget is just disappearing.
It really is, but here's where it gets really interesting. High energy prices aren't just squeezing commuters, trying to get to work. They are colliding head-on with the most energy-hungry, rapidly expanding industry on the entire planet right now.
Artificial intelligence.
Exactly, artificial intelligence. Semiconductor shares actually rebounded today, with the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index gaining about 1.5%. So investors are buying the dip. But the broader market is sort of holding its breath for earnings reports from Alphabet, Tesla, Intel, and IBM.
Because everyone is wondering about the spending.
Right. The core question on Wall Street is whether this massive, unprecedented capital spending on AI infrastructure is actually sustainable. And then, almost on cue, Moonshot AI releases their new Kimi K3 model, and within 48 hours, they had to pause all new subscriptions.
Which is crazy when you think about it. The demand was so intense, it just pushed their physical GPUs, the graphics processing units running all the math, to their absolute limits.
Just max them out entirely.
Yeah. Kimi K3 is built for what we call agentic coding workloads.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear, this isn't a simple chatbot generating a chocolate chip cookie recipe. Agentic workloads require massive context windows.
Okay, let's define that for a second, because context window gets thrown around a lot in these tech updates. It is basically the AI's short-term memory, right?
Essentially, yes. To write complex software, the AI has to sort of remember and reference thousands of lines of previous code all at once.
Oh, wow.
It has to talk to itself, check its own work, and run these really complex logic loops over and over again. And that requires massive computational muscle.
Right.
Even if the cost of processing a single word is incredibly cheap, the sheer volume of processing required to execute one of these multi-stage logic loops is just astronomical.
I mean, it's like inventing the world's fastest, most advanced sports car, but suddenly realizing you literally don't have enough paved roads or gasoline to actually drive it.
That's a great way to look at it.
But wait, aren't tech companies promising us that AI will make everything, like our grids and supply chains, wildly more efficient? How can they do that if they are currently fighting local communities over basic water and electricity just to run the models?
What's fascinating here is how that exact contradiction plays out differently depending on the region. Take the two major players right now, China and the United States.
Okay.
So Moonshot AI is based in China, and they're currently seeking a $30 billion valuation and a potential Hong Kong listing. Alibaba also just previewed their massive 2.4 trillion parameter model, the Qwen 3.8 Max.
2.4 trillion parameters. I mean, just to put that in perspective, a parameter is essentially a variable the AI uses to make decisions, kind of like a synapse in a human brain. So a 2.4 trillion parameter model represents this unimaginably dense web of logic.
Exactly. And it requires an unbelievable amount of electricity just to power the hardware doing that math. But China's AI development is primarily constrained by hardware access.
Oh, because of the chips.
Right. Due to U.S. export controls, Beijing faces a really tight bottleneck in acquiring the most advanced chips. This creates a severe tension between their open AI diplomacy, where they want to project their technological strength globally, and their national security, which demands they protect these advanced models as scarce strategic assets.
But the U.S. has the chips, so our bottleneck isn't the hardware at all.
No, our bottleneck is physical public resistance.
Wow, really?
Yeah. There have been 142 protests across 42 different U.S. states, specifically opposing data centers.
142.
Yep. Communities are protesting the massive consumption of land, the literally millions of gallons of water required to cool the servers, and the huge strain on the local electrical grid. The White House is actually stepping in right now, asking utilities and developers for voluntary pledges that this data center growth won't result in higher electricity bills for regular households.
Though, to be fair, a voluntary pledge doesn't mean much to a community that wants, legally enforceable protections on their utility rates.
Uh,
And this is driving what the source material calls the controlled access microtrend. We are clearly moving away from the era of let's make every AI model available to everyone.
Definitely.
The industry is shifting towards strictly rationing the future, deciding who gets to use which system, geographically locking access, and limiting permitted workloads simply because the physical world cannot support open access.
And we have to ask why these local communities are so fiercely protective of their water and power grids in the first place.
Right.
It's because those systems are already overwhelmed by extreme weather events and compounding natural disasters.
Which brings us to arguably the starkest contrast in today's news brief. Up in space, we are seeing literal science fiction level triumphs. India's Vikram-1 mission just successfully validated a private orbital launch using 3D printed engine components.
It's an incredible achievement.
It is. They placed payloads into a 450-kilometer orbit.
And the use of 3D printing for rocket engines fundamentally changes the economics of space.
How so?
Well, traditional engines require hundreds of separately machined parts welded together, which creates multiple points of failure and takes months to build. 3D printing allows companies to manufacture an engine essentially as a single piece in a matter of days.
That's insane.
It drastically lowers the weight, slashes the cost, and really democratizes access to space.
And the specific 450-kilometer orbit they reached is super critical because that's low Earth orbit, which is the perfect altitude for Earth observation satellites. Close enough to get high-definition imagery, but far enough away to maintain a really stable orbit.
Exactly.
But here's the paradox. What are those highly advanced satellites actually looking at?
Disasters.
Yeah. They are tracking flood recovery in Texas. They are tracking Canadian wildfire smoke blowing across borders. They are mapping massive Western fires that currently require over 17,000 personnel on the ground to fight.
The massive mobilization.
So what does this all mean for you? We have private rockets in India perfectly placing satellites so we can track wildfires from space in stunning 4K resolution. But down on the ground, communities in Texas are still struggling to clear out dangerous mold from flooded homes. And people around the Great Lakes are checking air quality alerts to see if they need an N95 mask just to walk to their cars. Why is our high-tech observation advancing so much faster than our physical resilience?
This raises an important question, and sociologists actually refer to this exact phenomenon as the response gap.
The response gap.
Yeah. Our capability to observe, measure, and predict disasters has improved exponentially. Satellite data lets emergency teams see fire growth and smoke transport across different jurisdictions in real time. We know exactly what is happening.
Right, the data is there.
But society increasingly possesses this knowledge long before it possesses the physical infrastructure to actually withstand the event. I mean, we can watch a historic flood developing from space. But if a town's drainage system is 50 years old, the water still destroys the homes.
Wow.
The knowledge doesn't drain the water.
It's like we have the world's most advanced alarm system, but we haven't bothered to upgrade the locks on the doors.
Precisely. And this leads to a profound secondary effect called accumulated strain. Think about how these completely disparate pressures start to layer on top of each other.
Okay.
In the Gulf, attacks on desalination plants threaten local sanitation and hospital operations. Here at home, when gasoline hits $4, it creates a very real, indirect health burden.
Because things cost more to transport.
Yes, and it makes it significantly more expensive for rural patients to drive to necessary medical visits. It raises the cost of delivering fresh food to grocery stores.
And let's not forget the 17 American service members killed and the over 400 wounded we mentioned earlier in the Gulf. Those returning casualties require ongoing, complex trauma treatment, rehabilitation, and prosthetics. The healthcare system has to physically absorb that influx of need.
And that is exactly what accumulated strain is. It means that these pressures, the bad air quality from the smoke, the extreme heat, the $4 fuel, the debt from student loans, the medical needs of returning veterans, they do not happen in isolation.
They all stack up.
Right. They combine and compound into massive societal consequences.
Yeah.
The system's just carrying a tremendous load right now.
Which is heavy. I mean, let's be honest. And usually when the geopolitical news is grim, the economy is tight, and the weather is severe, we turn to global sports for a unifying escape.
We look for a distraction.
Exactly. We look for a place where the rules are clear and the only thing that matters is the game. But this weekend, The men's World Cup final basically proved that human biology is just another system suffering from that accumulated strain.
It really did. Spain took the trophy, their second men's World Cup,
Mm.
beating Argentina 1-0 in 106 minutes.
Huge goal by Ferran Torres.
Yeah, and it caps an incredible 38-match unbeaten streak for Spain. But the underlying story of the match was total, undeniable physical exhaustion.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Argentina failed to register a single shot on target during regular time, a stunning collapse for a team of that caliber. And in extra time, Enzo Fernandez was dismissed with a red card, and it all just culminated in a deeply undignified post-match scuffle between the teams.
The players were completely gassed. I mean, they had nothing left in the tank. This comes back to the structure of the tournament itself. This was the debut of FIFA's new 48-team format. More teams mean more matches, much longer commitments, and incredibly extensive transatlantic travel schedules for the athletes. The European leagues and private clubs are absolutely furious and actively resisting this expansion.
And we have to look at the economics driving that resistance.
That's always the money.
Always. The private clubs are the ones paying these players tens of millions of dollars in salaries. Under this expanded FIFA format, the governing body reaps the massive global broadcast revenue from the extra matches, while the clubs are left bearing the financial risk of player injuries and the cost of rehabilitating exhausted athletes when they finally return to their regular seasons.
Okay, I get that. I understand the clubs wanting to protect their investments, and obviously the human body can only play so many 90-minute matches back-to-back. But let me push back a little here. Doesn't a 48-team tournament fundamentally mean more inclusion?
It does.
Doesn't it mean fans from smaller nations finally get to see their home countries represented on the biggest stage on Earth?
And that inclusion aspect is deeply, deeply meaningful for those global fans. You're absolutely right. But what we are witnessing is a broader microtrend called institutional fatigue.
Institutional fatigue.
Yes. What you are seeing in global football perfectly mirrors what we are seeing in the power grid and the AI data centers. Just as our electrical grids are maxing out under the strain of cooling server farms, human athletes and the global sports calendar are hitting their biological and commercial limits.
Wow.
The spectacle, the endless commercial inventory generated by having 48 teams, has grown larger than the actual athletic competition it was designed to present. The core question being asked by clubs, players, and increasingly the audiences themselves is, who are these mega events actually designed to serve?
Wow, it really is all connected. We started this deep dive looking at a series of isolated headlines, but the through line is just undeniable.
That's all about limits.
Yeah. You have decisions being made by military commands in the Middle East dictating the flow of global energy. You have corporate boardrooms in China and the U.S. pushing the absolute limits of silicon and local electricity. And you have FIFA headquarters stretching the physical endurance of the world's best athletes for commercial expansion. All of these macro-level forces are compounding, and the impact zone is your daily reality. It's the price of your commute, the availability of your software, and the quality of your entertainment. I love discovering these hidden connections, and I really want to thank you, the listener, for coming along on this intellectual journey with us today.
It is so vital to see the whole board. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to consider.
Go for it.
We've spent a lot of time today exploring physical constraints, the amount of available land, the capacity of a town's water pipe, the biological endurance of a human being. If these physical realities are the ultimate hard limits to our seemingly infinite digital and global ambitions, what happens to our economy when we inevitably have to start pricing the actual cost of resilience into everything?
The cost of resilience.
Think about what that actually means for a second. What happens when the cost of fortifying the grid, securing redundant supply chains, and protecting local water resources isn't just an abstract government problem, but gets priced directly into your monthly AI software subscription, the cost of your groceries, or even your morning cup of coffee?
That is a question that is going to define the next decade, for sure. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking for those invisible threads, and we will see you next time.